What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the BlockHash podcast. Today, we have another exciting guest, Miguel, here to talk about Nillion. He is the co-founder and chief scientist. Nillion is building and working on something that's quite unique in the space, something called a blind computer, or humanity's first blind computer. So we're going to dive into that today and see what they are working on here in the Web3 industry. Miguel, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on. How you doing today?
Thank you, Brandon. It's great to be here. I'm doing great. Thank you.
To get things going, usually what we do to kick things off is we do a little bit of an introduction and background on
Yeah.
the speaker. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm sure people would love to learn a little bit more about your background and what kind of led up to your path here to Nillion in the Web3 space.
Sure. So I think you can place me at the intersection between engineering and maths. So I did a master's in telecom engineering and then did a PhD in maths. So I have always liked kind of the algorithmic side of engineering, if you wish. So I worked in large projects and companies, building infrastructure for like the back end of the internet, developed like 27 patents in my PhD. And then very soon I started getting interested in AI. So working with big data on the back end kind of took me to AI. And so I worked at several startups and smaller companies working on that. And then in 2013, I got interested in cryptography, so in zero knowledge proofs. And that led me into crypto, the other crypto, like the Web3 crypto. And that was around 2017. So I had been working on identity-based solutions, authentication, and things like that with ZKP. And then I stumbled upon, privacy coins and things like that. I met with Andrew Masanto. He's a founder of Hedera and Reserve. And we kind of toyed with the idea of creating a privacy coin in 2017, but it wasn't like the right moment because there was already a few of them and we didn't think it was a big enough market. So that's when I started like in parallel already, kind of trading myself. I created a chatbot and a trading bot and so on. But then later on, as I continued working on privacy enhancing technologies, in particular in multi-party computation, we met again with Andrew Masanto, and this time it was different. This time it was the summer of 2021, and we thought that what we had it was something new that Web3 needed, which is the ability to compute on private data in a decentralized way. And that's how we got Nillion started. Along came also Alex Page and Andrew Yo and other members of the founding team like Slava Rubin, who's the CEO of Indiegogo, or Conrad William, who was the founding engineer at Uber. He started as the CTO of the company. So we kind of started what we call the Avengers group, and we started hacking our way through Web3 essentially.
Nice, man. Yeah, that group at Hedera is a good group of guys. I interviewed Lehman quite a while back, but no, very, very smart. How would you describe, what you guys are doing with Nillion? Like, if you could sum up your guys' core mission, what you guys are trying to achieve, what would that be?
So let me start with what it's not. It's not a blockchain. It's not another blockchain. Although it has a blockchain inside, I will get to that in a second. But essentially, you can think of Nillion as a new type of Web3 or decentralized infrastructure that is capable of handling private data. So it can essentially store private data in a decentralized way, but it most importantly can compute on it without requiring you to reveal your sensitive data to anyone, to any of the nodes. That's why it's called a blind computer. So blind computer is kind of the name that we put to this type of infrastructure. And the name blind comes from the fact that the nodes running the network don't have visibility over your data. They are blind. They don't see your private information. And yet they're able not only to store it, but actually to run computations on this. And so the kind of if you read our website, it says humanity's first blind computer comes from the idea that we're building the first of this kind, because there will be more of this time. So what we call our blind computer is the Nillion blind computer, and other companies will come and build similar ones. The underlying technology is privacy enhancing technologies, which it's a type of cryptography. So zero knowledge proof, you may be familiar with that. That's very common in Web3, but there's also other flavors of that, or other flavors of cryptography. For example, FHE, fully homomorphic encryption, or MPC, multi-party computation, even TEEs, trusted execution environments. All of them are part of this family of privacy enhancing technologies, which have been in the making for almost 4 decades. And now is the time when they're finally ready for production. So any network that makes use of these technologies to allow for the private compute and storage of data in a decentralized way is kind of what we understand as a blind computer. And why is this important? Well, the reason is because essentially we think that that's the missing ingredient in Web3. So we think that there's been a lot of use cases built around finance, because usually you want things to be public and accountable, and you want a ledger that everyone can look and check. But if you look outside of those use cases, or even if you look at the consumer side of those use cases of DeFi, for example, then you very easily stumble upon the need for privacy. You need to be able to handle private data in Web3 infrastructure. And that's essentially what the Nillion's blind computer does.
Yeah, when I first saw your guys' slogan, I was like, what is humanity's first blind computer? What does that mean? How's that possible? Then I started looking at your guys' documentation, and when I saw, being able to compute but not really see the data, through the notes, I was like, oh, that's actually very fascinating.
Yeah.
So it does grab your attention and bring you in quite a bit. No, but that's awesome that you guys are working on that. I think that's something that's very much needed in the Web3 space. How does it work more specifically? Looking at the process behind blind compute, how does that work? And then, how does it leverage Nillion's NDK, if I'm saying that correctly? And how does it work under the hood?
So essentially, the magic comes from this new type of cryptography, which is encompassed in the term privacy enhancing technologies. The main difference to traditional cryptography is that with traditional cryptography, you can do, out of the three things that you do with data, you can do two. You can transfer data in a private way by encrypting it, and you can store it in a private way. But the minute you need to compute on that data, then you need to decrypt it first. And that's when problems start, because of that reason, companies providing you with a service in Web 2 have to have a key that enables them to decrypt your data. So even if you're being told, yeah, your data is safe with us, it's encrypted, actually there's a there's a point in time when they need to decrypt that to able to process it and to be able to kind of deliver you with a service that they're offering. And that's the mother of all problems in Web 2. That's the reason why you have to trust those centralized keepers of information. That's the reason why they become honeypots and they can be hacked. And that's what we are solving for. So we are offering a new type of privacy, which we call decentralized privacy. And the difference is that no one has the decryption keys to your data. It's only in collaboration that the nodes in the network are able to kind of jointly store and compute on your data, but no one is actually decrypting that information. More specifically, and to your question, the type of technologies that we use is a combination of different privacy enhancing technologies, because we don't think that there's a silver bullet out there. We don't think that there's this magical cryptography that is going to, push away all other alternatives, be it FHE or MPC or ZKP. We think that each one is unique and offers very interesting features, and that actually by combining them, you get something better. So that's the essence of what the blind computer is. That's the essence of what we call the PetNet, which, as you might as you might guess, it's a network of different privacy enhancing technologies. And we think that what's interesting is to be able to combine them, because that opens up the design space for developers, because you're now leveraging the best out of each privacy enhancing technology. So it's kind of hard for me to go one level deeper and explain to you how each one of those pets works, because they're different. They're actually different. But I think the encryption analogy is a good one. Essentially, all of them have some information hiding mechanism, call it encryption. And then the nice thing is that they're able to operate on encrypted data without decrypting it. I think that's kind of the gist of the value proposition.
Okay. Can you kind of shed some light on what some of those things might look like in terms of Nillion being implemented in the Web3 space, whether it's the PETs, the privacy enhancing technologies, whether it's a DePIN or even artificial intelligence, like some different areas in which it can really have an impact?
Yeah. So one way of looking at this is to distinguish between existing Web3 applications that don't want to have anything to do with Web2 data in particular, so private Web2 data, and other applications that might benefit from that. So in the first category, you have things like custody, you have wallets, signatures. Those are powered by threshold protocols, which means that the private key, instead of storing it somewhere, you're thresholdizing it. You're kind of breaking it down into shares, and those shares are stored by the network, so that no one has your key, but everyone has your key. And you can, of course, through control, access control mechanisms, you can instruct the network to sign messages on your behalf and interact with smart contracts and things like that. You have things like crypto games where, again, there's no data coming from Web2, but it's very interesting to be able to push the private state of a game onto this kind of decentralized infrastructure, so that you have guarantees that the randomness that the game is making use of is hasn't been tampered with, and you have guarantees that the game is doing what it says on the tin. You have things like DAOs, like private voting. In DeFi, you have things like encrypted order books or private auctions, or you may think about private limit orders, private liquidation auctions, or even private trading policies, where you want to keep a set of trading policies private so that people cannot copy you. And you have things like secure messaging, and the list goes on. Essentially, any DeSci and so on, any vertical you find in Web3 in essentially can be impacted by the use of now private information, and you can shift that area more to customer, to kind of end customers. Like, for example, DeFi, you couldn't think of putting all your credit card payments on a blockchain, but if you add privacy, then it's something that is more reasonable to do. And in the second category, you have applications in Web3 that would benefit from the use of Web2 data. And the reason why that might be interesting is because if you think about data in on the planet, like, most of it is private, at least the one that is really valuable. Most of it sits behind encrypted databases and firewalls, and it's held by companies. So that is like a huge honeypot of interesting data, that if you were able to kind of bring that into Web3, it would benefit the ecosystem a lot. And so here we're seeing things like secure storage of data, so that as a user, instead of sending my personal data over to some random Web2 server, I want to store it here in a decentralized infrastructure, in a blank computer, so that I can keep control of it, and I don't have to repeat the same process over and over again for each one of the providers that I interact with. And you have things like private analytics that then you can run on that data, and you could build things like data to earn markets, where you're in control of your data and you let others run some computations, some analytics on your data, and that from others, and getting some insights back. But in exchange for that, you get some sort of incentive, economic incentive. So we're seeing a lot of people building that type of solution. That nicely connects with AI, because some of those analytics are not just the regular stuff you do with statistics, but actually they want to run AI agents, for example, on their private data. So we're seeing a lot of that. And also we're seeing collaborative applications, like when you put together people with data in Web2, and you want to connect them and allow them to get insights from their data, but they don't want to share that data actually, so that it is something that they would run on our platform. And as I said before, one of the main kind of categories in this space where you're using information from Web2 is AI. So AI agents, for example, that are trained on your personal data, like, be it your financials or your tax numbers or your health information. All of that would be impossible to do on regular Web3 infrastructure. If it's public, you need this privacy component, because obviously this is very sensitive information. And so the things that we're seeing people do is, in training, you have federated learning, which allows you to merge models without actually seeing the weights from the model, because you can do secure weight aggregation. In theory, you can also do synthetic data generation and things like private data aggregation. Then in inference, we're seeing people build private RAG solutions or retrieval augmented generation solutions where you want to enrich your prompts with information coming from a private database. But again, that database ideally should be stored in a decentralized infrastructure that is privacy preserving, and also private inference, very very hot, very promising avenue. And of course, connecting that to agents. So yeah, in summary, you have these two main avenues. Like existing Web3 projects, they don't want to do anything with Web2, but they want to become more consumer oriented, and that's when they hit the blocker of requiring access to consumer information, which is usually private and sensitive. And you have these other type of projects which are kind of Web3, but they want to use the information that it exists already in Web2, which is so valuable and has been collected over decades and decades.
Nice, man. It seems like blind compute has quite a wide array of implementation, which is awesome to see. In any of these specific avenues, have you seen any particular use cases, applications, or anything built by developers that you think is really cool or quite unique in how they've tapped into Nillion?
Yeah, so I would highlight a few of them. So data analytics, which I mentioned before, is definitely something many people are doing, and there's a few developers interested in that, and I think it's very cool. It's very cool to finally have a place to put your personal stuff that you can trust, because there's like this decentralized value proposition that doesn't require you to hand over the keys, the decryption keys, to any individual agent. And then that connects very nicely to AI, because we are seeing also other, what we call FEs, which is stands for founder entrepreneurs, is people we are working very close with to develop applications on top of our infrastructure. And we're seeing also people building marketplaces for private agents. And I think that's really exciting. It's really exciting because without privacy, decentralized AI can provide you with some degree of, it is valuable because it can guarantee you that the right model is being run. So essentially, you can verify and you can prove that you're running what it says on the tin. But without privacy, again, what can you do? So very public and basic stuff like tweeting and stuff like that. But if you want to be really useful and have like a financial advisor, tax advisor, health advisor, and so on, then you have to put your personal data. And that's what these platforms are building. They're building marketplaces where you can use out of the box agents, expose them to your personal data, be it health or in any other domain, and have an advisor that suddenly you can use, and it can be really helpful. um, and it's interesting that initially the Web3 value proposition was this verifiability thing. So it was around making sure that you're getting as a service what it says on the tin, because it was the main concern in finance, right? In everything related to transactions, which is what originally Web3 tackled. That's the real thing that matters. Like, are you preventing double spending from happening and things like that? So you're very very careful about providing guarantees that the service, in this case the kind of the token service, is running as it should. But as you move away from that and into AI, it turns out that there's another area of decentralization, which has to do with control, which has to do with the control of your data. That is precisely the thing that matters the most. Because now, okay, it's important to be able to be sure that you're getting the right model. But anyway, you would find it probably, if you're given a cheaper model, you would find that it's not smart enough. You would notice. But it's even more important to be, and ensure to be given the guarantees that all that personal information that you're sharing with that model is actually being stored on a decentralized infrastructure. So that's something very exciting. Another category is games. So be it like tone games, things like that, where you want to use some of the key features for storing the private state on the Web3 infrastructure, but you want that state obviously to be private. And another thing is decentralized exchanges. So that's kind of a bit longer term, but it's very exciting to be able to run a whole exchange that is decentralized, number one, but also private, so that no one is seeing the transactions, but nevertheless the rules are being enforced as to, matching bids and asks and things like that. So those four would be like the things that we're really that at least I find it very, very, very exciting to see growth on our platform. Obviously, we have others as well, but those are definitely very, very exciting.
Yeah, those sound, incredibly exciting, and especially those different sectors and things like gaming too. I know are getting really, really big right now, and just the whole concept of privacy too around a lot of this stuff. Like it's pretty crazy. I think some of the things that are going on in society now. I mean, just like a couple of weeks ago, there was something on the House Judiciary Committee in the U.S. Apparently, there's U.S. banks that are asked by the federal government to sort transactions on customers and send that to government officials. And it's like we live in an era where there's like not a lot of privacy around
Yeah,
financial transactions and what we do. And there's not as much innovation outside of the Web3 space. So it's great
yeah,
getting to see, what you guys are doing, creating that, I think, avenue for people so they can
yeah.
build things that are more privacy focused.
Yeah, actually, there is an example on that. I didn't cover it because it's not Web3, but as you're saying, this could very well impact Web2 as well, which has to do with banks, for example, around, they are sitting between these two kind of contradictory, or at least contending regulations. One is AML, anti-money laundering. The other one is bank privacy and data protection. One says share everything so that we can catch the bad guys. The other one says don't share anything from your customers. So as a result from that, they're doing a pretty bad job at AML. Essentially, there's $1 trillion laundered through the financial system every year, and they only catch like 1% of that. And their current tools have like 90% false positives. So they're spending billions of dollars on that, and they're getting very poor results because they don't have the right data. The problem is not algorithms. The problem is that they don't have the data. They cannot share the data between the sender and the recipient of a transaction, for example, because those are different customers. They may be sitting in different institutions, maybe in different banks. Maybe it's the same bank, but it's different kind of jurisdictions. So data protection prevents you from kind of cross-referencing that information. With this type of technology, you could do that. That is something that is completely feasible. You can now just cross-reference that information without exchanging it and get the insights of whether that transaction is legitimate or is not. It's fraudulent. So that's just one example. Just when you talked about banks, it's just one example that triggered in my head about potential use cases for this technology outside of Web3.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great use case for banks in particular because it's kind of that weird thing where I understand both sides of the conversation. Obviously you want to catch the bad guys, but at the same time you don't want to infringe on
Yeah.
someone's right to privacy. It's how do you do that? Technologies like this, solve that problem, and I think make it a lot easier for people. And then I saw an article on you guys in Cointelegraph. You guys raised another 25 million. Congrats on that, by the way. I'm sure out of that comes some great partnerships as well. How important of a milestone is this for you guys in Nillion and being able to continue that growth and build out, these decentralized privacy solutions?
Oh, it's really important. So this is the second raise that we did. In total, it's been 50 millions. So the first one was primarily to build. So we were heads down for a couple of years, actually, building this new type of infrastructure because we couldn't just reuse something off the shelf, right? We are not just using a blockchain. We have to come up with a lot of new functionality and the infrastructure to support it. So it was pretty intensive in terms of development effort. Um, and also, by the way, we do connect with a blockchain, which I kind of touched on very superficially before. The blockchain is essentially to provide services like payments, token economics, like incentives and slashing and all that. But the actual network that performs the storage and compute on private data and it's decentralized is this petnet that I mentioned before. So the petnet, there's nothing like that on the market, right? So we had to build it from scratch, and essentially the first race was aimed towards that. Now, this second race is definitely a very important milestone for us. It means we now have resources to actually expand and grow and develop the community. So this is about us stepping out of a cave, if you wish. We've built the first iteration, and now we have to go and make it grow with the community. And so we're getting like very interesting results already. Like we have almost 500,000 verifiers that check the integrity of our data. We have node operators for the blockchain component that I just mentioned, but also for the petnet. We're working with founding entrepreneurs, not only Web3 developers, which kind of would benefit from the first category of use cases that I was mentioning before, but also there's a lot of Web2 developers who always wanted to run decentralized, storage and compute, but encountered the problem of not being able to of this type of infrastructure not being able to handle private data. Now they can. So we're seeing a lot of Web2 developers also coming in and working with us, and it's really interesting to see the differences between the two. Like Web3 are very savvy, technically speaking. They're kind of backend type of people, very protocol knowledgeable, knowledgeable around protocols and privacy enhancing technologies. Web2 are more focused on product market fit, very good in designing really sleek applications. So it's kind of great to see those two complementary sets of talents, being put together on the same platform. I'm really excited about that personally. Also, this money is going over for partnerships. You mentioned that. So L1 and L2 partnerships. So we have so far Near, Arbitrum, Aptos, Say, IO.net, Ritual, and others. But it's going to continue, and we're going to be adding more networks, because the idea is that this is not an infrastructure that sits in isolation. It's actually connected to Web3 infrastructure, to blockchain infrastructure, so that it can interact with smart contracts and so on, and be part of the arsenal of ammunition and weaponry that you have as a Web3 developer to work on. And then we have this amazing community of kind of developer community on Discord and hackathons and so on. So this money is also going for to incentivize those developers to come up with amazing ideas on hackathons and things like that, and also to work with the huge community of cryptographers, because again, we're not pretending to have solved every problem in cryptography with one solution. We're actually more of the view that it's the combination of all privacy enhancing technologies that would, that makes sense as the right way to build this infrastructure. And the effort continues. Like there's constantly new ideas for protocols and new things that are coming up. For example, we did a collaboration with Meta, Royal Holloway, several universities, and we came up with a way to accelerate private inference on AI significantly. So that's just one example that things are getting better as we speak. It's not just that you plug in one PET, one privacy enhancing technology, and you're done. The effort continues, and so we're addressing this whole huge community of cryptographers and working with them to do that. So that's the kind of the community aspect of this 25 million raise. And then for the petnet, what it means is obviously to incorporate more PETs and also to interconnect them. So it's not enough to bring in FHE. The nice thing is to be able to combine it with MPC, with other technologies, so that you can find the best point in the trade-off space for your given risk appetite and security requirements and performance requirements, right? So that's the kind of the vision for the network. So that money is going also over for that. As I said, we are also improving on the state of the art of AI and privacy enhancing technology in general. So we did this work with universities and Meta, and we're continuing innovating on that front. And for example, one of the things we're building is this highly scalable encrypted database. So I think it's the first time that you find something that is built on PETs that is able to scale and looks and feels the same as a centralized database, but is completely decentralized and it's private. And so it's based on MongoDB, so you can work on it with it as you would work with MongoDB, but it's actually something else because under the hood, you're making use of these privacy enhancing technologies. And finally, we want to give it a big push on the infrastructure to push it to production. So that's something happening in 2025 that we're really, really excited about.
Excellent. We'll get to 2025 here in a second. But also, for developers that want to start building on Nillion today, how can they do that? Is there any documentation, educational resources? Where would you send them?
Sure. So I would send them over to docs.nillion.com. That's kind of the starting point. There you can see we structured it as learn, build, and then resources. So learn, you can learn about what Nillion is, a little bit more about kind of the underlying technologies of multi-party computation, and how the network is structured and things like that. Then if you are ready to start building, then you have things like the Nillion clients, so JavaScript and Python. Then you have the Nada language, which is kind of the is a DSL of Python, so it's a domain specific language built on Python, so it looks and feels like Python, but it's actually again making use of these advanced PETs under the hood. We also have things like an AI specific language, which is very similar to, it's actually PyTorch, so you can build on that as well. We have things like storage APIs, so the ones I was referring to, this kind of decentralized database. In essence, you can learn and start. You can first learn and then start building and doing all the things you would do, like how to upload a NADA program to the network, how to use the APIs, and so on. And then you have other resources like testnet guys and so on, because currently we are in testnet phase. So that would be one. And then if you want to get inspiration as to what to build, we have this other subdomain, which is called masquerade.nillion.com. And there you can see a few examples of things you can do with the network. So I think we have a few examples of AI, like things like detecting cancer from scans of your lungs, but again, not sharing those scans because they're really sensitive, things like that. And I think it's a very good. It kind of comes from the product instead of the tech, but it informs you about the type of things that you can build on the network. So I think it's a very interesting resource as well.
Awesome. And then, heading into 2025, what's on the roadmap for Nillion? What are some key milestones you guys have coming up? Things people should keep an eye out for? Are you guys attending any other events, hackathons? What's on the radar?
Yeah, lots of exciting things. So we're really, things are really hectic right now. So I think one main milestone is we're launching mainnet, both for the Nil chain, which is the blockchain linked to the network, but also from the petnet, which is the network, the decentralized storage and compute part. So we're moving from testnet, which is currently the status, to mainnet, and that's really exciting because it means that now you can be talking about the real thing, right? So we're really really excited about that. Then also alongside with that, we're launching the first cohort of FEs, of founding entrepreneurs, which are going to be mainly around building solutions around data analytics, which I mentioned before, and also AI, like for example this marketplace of agents. Again, something very exciting to see because it's the first people who are building stuff on the network. So I think it will inform and inspire others to come. And of course we also have other cohorts or batches coming after that, but the first one is coming Q1, so it's really interesting. I think it will be really interesting to watch that, to see that. And then I would say if it depends the milestone, if you're a developer, then the thing to keep an eye on, I would say, is Nil AI. So essentially, we're launching with three components that we called blind modules. Um, so those are the modules that comprise the petnet. And one of them is called Nillion. So essentially, what it does is the compute part of the value proposition. So it enables you to compute without revealing information. Another one is NilDB, which is this database that is also decentralized. It enables you to store information in a decentralized and private way. And then the third one is Nil AI. So this is kind of a little bit domain specific, if you wish. So you can think a little bit in terms of a library, but actually, because AI touches on so many verticals and industries, it's also kind of a generic component which sits at the same level as this general purpose compute. So that one, as you may guess, it's specialized on running AI processes and computations in a privacy preserving way. And if you're a developer, I would keep an eye on that, on the things that are coming in 2025 around Nil AI, that blind module. If you are a cryptographer, also AI is really hot. Like we've just published two papers. One is Ripple, it's called Ripple. The other one is called Curl, um, on a pioneering effort that we did to use something from signal processing, which has nothing to do with cryptography, and use it to accelerate inference in AI, in private inference in AI. So we kind of moved it onto cryptography, and it's been really exciting to work with Meta and with other universities on that. And we've just been confirmed the publication of a new paper. It's called Wave Hello to Privacy on Puppets 2025, which is about the kind of the continuation of that work. So stay tuned for that. And also, it's also done in collaboration with University of Calgary and OpenMind. And more research work is coming on AI. And also the interesting thing is that the time from research to production is very, very short. Like, for example, these innovations are already part of the Nil AI. So we're really being very fast. So don't think that it's just because it's just a paper that is going to take ages to see it on the infrastructure. We're being quite fast about that. And if you're a node operator going to mainnet, I think what it means to you is new opportunities, essentially, because you can now be part of the network running the token and the blockchain, or you can be part of one of the clusters, one of the pieces of infrastructure running the petnet, the privacy enhancing technology network, with different trade-offs, different requirements. But it's almost sure that it doesn't matter what your hardware looks like. I think you will find a place to fit within this whole ecosystem, because they're very heterogeneous, the requirements from different parts of the network. So those I think are the main milestones coming in, Brandon.
And then where can people find your guys' community? You guys are probably on socials. Do you have Telegram, Discord? Where can they go if they want to chat with people?
Yeah, so I would go to nillion.com, and then I think on the top right you find the socials. You find a link to our Telegram group, our Discord channel. Those two, together with our X account, I think are the main touch points, I think, for community to engage with us. Like, if you want it less interactive but more informative, it's probably crypto Twitter. If you want it more interactive, then it's either Telegram or Discord.
Miguel, thank you so much for taking the time today to have this conversation and share with what you guys are doing with Nillion. I think it's really cool what you guys are doing with blind compute. I didn't think that concept was possible until you explained it today, and I learned about it. So I think it's awesome that you guys are really pushing some applications and use cases around that, and really bolstering privacy and security in numerous different areas, whether it's AI, whether it's gaming, you name it, whether it's banking. This is going to be very expansive, and excited to see what you guys do in 2025. And for you guys as mainnet, just keep me up to date on everything that's going on, and maybe we'll hop back on for part 2.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Brandon. I think it's really a pleasure to be your host, and it's really sorry, your guest, and it's really interesting. We're really living interesting times and exciting times in Web3. I think is a moment where we see for the first time that there's a new change in direction, and that Web3 can grow beyond its current limitations, because now it's able to do something that before it wasn't possible to do. So this, in a sense, is a type of disruptive innovation. And sure, there's going to be a lot of companies. There's actually a lot of companies working on this space. And I think, all of us are kind of bringing something interesting and valuable to the community. And I'm really excited to see what developers are going to be building on top of our network. Really, really exciting times coming in.
Yeah, next year will be very exciting. So keep me up to date on what you guys are doing.
I'll do. Thank you so much.